Hello YouTube. As somebody who collects vintage toys, I've always had Moomins on my list to get at some point, but I never knew which ones to buy and I kind of put it off, and fate has decided for me. I managed to get these ones from a car boot sale. The little set here cost me £5. It's not quite a complete set, there's three missing that I need to get, but it's a near complete set and they're a bit grubby, but for £5 I was not going to turn them down. When you think of Moomins, you might think of this image or a cartoon version, but the cartoon version didn't come until the 1990s. What I remember is the original stop animation version. This image from Wikipedia gives you some idea of what that series was like. You can see the figures here are flocked, just like the figures that I've just bought. That earlier animated series of the Moomins was from the 1980s, and it reminded me of other animations from my childhood, things like Magic Roundabout, Wombles, Paddington Bear, and then later other things like Morph. There were many other stop motion animations back in those days, and they all just had a certain innocence about them. This little set of figures is made by a company called Martinex, who are based in Finland. These were made in 1991, which doesn't sound that long ago to me, but it's like 34 years ago now. I was so glad when I looked these up and realised that they were as vintage as they are. So there are 10 figures in this set. Like I say, I've got 7 of them and I need 3 more. There is also another set made by Martinex, which are not flocked, they're just plastic figures, and I'll show you those in a bit, because I've got some images of card backs. There is a part of me that wants to leave them a little bit grubby, because it makes them look as old as they are, but a bigger part of me wants to clean them. So if any of you guys know how to clean flocked figures like this really effectively, without rubbing any of the flocking off, that would be much appreciated. Let me know in the comments. I could remember most of their names, but I couldn't remember all of them, so I looked them all up and I've put their names up on the screen to help some of you guys remember if any of you have forgotten what they were called. That Moomin Mama figure that you just saw was missing her red and white striped skirt and a little black handbag, so I'll have to try and source those at some point too. Most of the figures that I try and collect are ones that I can remember owning when I was a child. With these Moomins, I never had any when I was a kid, but I can remember the series so well and they're so nostalgic for me that I don't mind adding them to my collection. So obviously most of the Moomin figures were a similar kind of shape. They all look a little bit like kind of hippos, and I really like that, but obviously there are all the other characters as well, some of which are pretty unusual looking. So there's a figure that is supposed to be a human, which is this one here, and you can see doesn't really look human at all, that amazingly long nose. Um, but I just really love these kind of quirky ones. So there's that one, and then there's the next one with a really cool green hat. I like those two, but there are some even weirder ones that I like as well. One of them looks a bit like a kind of a kangaroo. I'll show you that one in a second. There's a real kind of fluffy one as well, covered in actual fluff. And then there's one that looks a bit like a ghost. Here's a listing that I found on eBay where someone's trying to get £125 for 5 of them. Okay, this is the back of a packet, and you can see that's the full set of 10. So the 3 that I still need, we've got this one that looks a bit like a kangaroo called Sniff. He's pretty cool. I'll look out for him. Then we've got this really fluffy one called Stinky. I really like that one, so I'm going to definitely look out for that. And then we've got this one called a Hattie Fattener, which is probably one of the best names of any character. Right, you can see the other set that Martinex did was all the plastic figures, and there are 15 of those instead of just the 10. And I think I will look out for these as well. If I ever manage to pick up that set, I will, because there's a few in there that are, again, completely different. I like the guy that looks a bit like a kind of a grey ghost, and the fact there's like 3 Hattie Fatteners all together. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Check out my other kind of 80s toy videos. They're mainly 80s, if you get a chance. Hit subscribe if you want to see anything that I post up in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.